hello. Let's see. Sorry. It's we're a few minutes late. There's actually another tour going on in the Museum of Paleontology right now, so I just had to wait for them to move on through. And I'll wait just a couple minutes for people to get on, then we can get started. I think my camera is mirroring right now. I don't think we want that. That'll make any lettering or words that I show you be backwards. So let's see if I can fix that. There we go. All right, we're off of mirroring now. That's good. We'll get started in just a minute here as people get on.
All the animals you see, like the Dinosaurs, which is in the center of the image right now. And then here's the Dinosaurs, one that my team made a few years ago. These are all exact replicas. We call them casts. And they're cast in plastic or fiberglass. All the original bones will be back. And I'm going to tell you why you need to know this. Why we replicate them. One is we put them together into lifelike poses like this. So that people who come up, they come up and they grab these things, like the visitors come up and grab these bones. Even if they break it, we can just make like a cast of it, right? It allows us to put them together in
All right, let's go ahead and get started now. Welcome to this Facebook Live presentation. My name is Taylor Oswald. I'm a lab technician here at the BYU Museum of Paleontology. I want to give a really big shout out to the Bean Museum, the Bean Life Science Museum, for hosting this, for doing this collaboration with the Museum of Paleontology. I think it's really cool because here at the Museum of Paleontology we kind of do life science as well. Our animals just happen to have been dead for a long time. Welcome everyone. What's that? Is there? I'm trying to see. Here we go. Kind of quiet. Am I talking too quietly? I guess project louder. I don't know if our microphone can be turned up. I think that's. I think we're just. Okay. Let me see if I can fix the sound on here. Can you hear me better now? Or is it still too quiet?
It's so hard to find duplicates of things because the only time they ever found things was when they were digging in quarries for clay or for stone.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just be closer to the camera and make sure to project. All right. So today I will be talking about birds and dinosaurs, specifically kind of how they're related. To start out, I've got this thing. Oh, here we go. This thing. Camera's funny. All right. Now, this is either a model of a dinosaur foot, or maybe this is something from a living animal. I guess you can kind of guess in your heads. If this were an in-person tour, I'd ask for a raise of hands, but I guess you can kind of think about that for a few seconds. This is actually a real foot of an emu, but of course that is a dinosaur foot. Birds, one of the things that people often don't realize is that birds are actually living dinosaurs. Any given bird is going to be closer related to a T-Rex than a T-Rex is to a Triceratops. Birds are descended from the theropod dinosaurs, and that's something we're going to talk about today. They have a lot of similarities between what we call the non-avian dinosaurs, the extinct dinosaurs. And in the case of birds like emus, their feet have not changed very much. This is still very much a dinosaur foot, which is pretty cool. For your kind of reference of how similar some dinosaurs are to some birds, here we go. This is an Ornithomimus skeleton compared to a modern emu. Here we go. You can see there's a few differences. The Ornithomimus has hands. The emu has stumpy wings, and it lacks a tail like the Ornithomimus. But it's very similar animals. If you really want to see some dinosaurs, just like go to Australia, look at the emus. Go to Africa, look at an ostrich. They retain a lot of very ancient dinosaur traits. But of course, all birds are dinosaurs, and all birds have characteristics that identify them as such. So for starters, we'll talk about kind of what makes a dinosaur and what birds have in common with extinct dinosaurs. Then we'll move into kind of brief evolutionary history of birds, how we got modern birds out of the ancient dinosaur group. So for starters, what makes a dinosaur? The name dinosaur means terrible lizard. However, that is not really accurate. The scientists back in the 1800s who first discovered dinosaurs and named them thought that they were more reptilian than they are. Nowadays, we actually know that they're a lot different than reptiles. If you have any questions, post it in the comments, and I can try to answer those as we're going here. Where was I? So they're actually not as reptilian as scientists used to think. For one, reptiles tend to have a sprawling stance. Think of a crocodile or a lizard. Whereas dinosaurs, they held their legs directly underneath their body. That's kind of like a mammal thing. That's what we do. Additionally, and possibly connected to that, we now think that most, if not all, dinosaurs were warm-blooded to some degree. And many of them had insulation like feathers. We found feather imprints on a number of different dinosaur groups, including raptors, some tyrannosaurs, even some bird-hipped ornithischian herbivore dinosaurs. So it's pretty cool, and it paints a picture that is not as reptilian as people once thought. And so really they're a better proxy for ancient dinosaurs is really birds, which are also feathered and warm-blooded, versus something like a lizard. Even that's what people used to think. Obviously we can't. Warm-bloodedness isn't necessarily preserved in the fossil record, even though it can be implied by various proxies. So the skeletal way that we define a dinosaur, there's a lot of different features. I'm going to focus on two today, and that is the ankle joint and the hip joint. Both of these are also present in modern birds. So to start out, here is the ankle joint. This is a comparison of the ankles of a crurotarsan, or like a crocodile, and a mesotarsan, or aviometatarsalien is another word, that's what dinosaurs are doing. So we don't need to get into like all the sciencey names for bones and what's going on, but this line here, that shows the way that the ankle bends in a crocodile, and then the line in the other one shows how the ankle bends in a dinosaur, in a bird. So the dinosaurs have this mesotarsal ankle. Now this isn't the only thing that defines a dinosaur. Actually, other things have the aviometatarsalien or mesotarsal condition as well. Pterosaurs, like this one behind me here, right over my head. They are not dinosaurs, but they are closely related, but they also have that kind of that bird ankle. Aviometatarsalien basically means bird ankle. They also have that. So there are some other traits that further define a dinosaur, one of which, and possibly the most prominent, is the hip structure. So this is the two, I guess, kind of arrangements of dinosaur hips, but they both have something in common. The acetabulum, so where the ilium, the ischium, and the pubis meet, there's a sort of a hole in the middle there. And that is one of the defining characteristics of dinosaurs. The femur kind of fits right into that hole. And that's sort of the mechanism that gives them an upright stance. It's different than our mechanism. It's unique to dinosaurs, but it kind of does the same thing as a mammal hip. Keeps the legs held under the body. And so all dinosaurs have that arrangement, where the hip bones meet. In the center, there's a kind of a socket hole that goes all the way through. We call it a perforate acetabulum. That's fancy talk, but basically just means there's a hole where the hip bones meet. Let's see, we have some questions. Were any of these dinosaurs in Jurassic World? Let's see, behind me, there in the mural, there are some brachiosaurs, so those were in Jurassic World. Also, I'll show some specimens that we have that are at least similar to some of the dinosaurs in Jurassic World. And then another question, what type of bird is most related to dinosaurs? They're all kind of about the same amount related. The ones that retain the most dinosaur-like traits is a group called ratites, those are your ostriches, emus, kiwi birds, cassowaries, things like those. That are, most of them are flightless as well, as were most dinosaurs, so yeah. So let's see, where was I? Showed you the dinosaur hips. So those are a couple of the characteristics that really define a dinosaur skeletally, and birds have those same characteristics. Another thing, and I'll show you a specimen now, another thing that I don't know if it defines a dinosaur, but that dinosaurs seem to all have in common, and birds as well, is a hard eggshell. So what I have here is a fossil dinosaur. This came from something like a Velociraptor, some kind of small carnivore like that. And dinosaurs are unique in that they have hard calcified eggshells, like a chicken egg or an ostrich egg. Any of those things. That's a hard calcified eggshell. Crocodiles and lizards and turtles, they lay eggs, but the shells aren't calcified. They're not hard. They don't crack. Crocodile and turtle eggs, they're more leathery, and lizard eggs can be almost papery. But dinosaurs, they have these hard eggshells, and this is an example of one of those in a fossil. These are kind of rare. You don't find these all the time because, I mean, if you've been shopping and dropped the eggs, they tend to break. You can see this one is actually, it's been pretty well broken, but it's still fairly intact. This is a pretty cool find, and you can come see this in the Museum of Paleontology when we eventually reopen. We actually do have a dinosaur egg display. It's pretty cool. So that's another thing that ancient dinosaurs have in common with modern birds. They lay the same type of egg. So that's all, without getting into too many more details. Those are some of the traits that unify the dinosaurs and include the birds within the dinosaurs. Now, you might be wondering, especially since I said that I'd talk about it, what is what was the path from the ancient dinosaurs to birds? So we're going to go back to our hip structure again. So dinosaurs can be divided into two groups. The Saurischia and Ornithoschia, or lizard-hipped and bird-hipped. Now this is actually kind of confusing because birds are actually lizard-hipped dinosaurs. The reason why they called these bird-hipped is because in birds the pubis points backwards, like on this diagram. However, this process here that sticks forward in the Ornithischian dinosaurs doesn't exist in birds. The actual bones of birds look more like nope, that's not right. Here we go. This one right here, the lizard hipped, but the pubis points backwards, so it's kind of confusing. So the birds actually arose from the lizard hipped dinosaurs. The Ornithischian Saurischia split happened early on in dinosaur history, back in the Triassic, like 230 million years ago. And then as the lizard-hipped carnivores developed on through the Jurassic, some of them became more bird-like. And you get a few groups kind of leading up to where birds branch off. One of which, that I'll show you a few bones from, is the raptors. Raptors are made popular by Jurassic Park, Jurassic World. How did birds get beaks? Ooh, that's a good question. I'll answer that in a minute. So the raptors are actually, among non-bird dinosaurs, among the closest group to the origin of birds. And I'll show you a few bones from those. So this one here, this is the skull of a Velociraptor. Velociraptor, as you might tell from this, is not as big as you might think from the movies. It's because the movies, they use the name Velociraptor, but they were actually basing their raptors off of a bigger species. Velociraptor itself is actually pretty small. But you can see in Velociraptor, it's got really big eyes, like a bird, and the skull is pretty lightly built. So it's kind of on its way to being a bird. Raptors had feathers, they had long arms, pretty big hands that were beginning to be quite wing-like. And so they're really becoming quite bird-like back then in the late Jurassic, and then the raptor group continued on into the Cretaceous, and that's where we get Velociraptor and other famous species. Another species of raptor that we have here, this is actually special for BYU, is this guy. Let's see if I can get this centered in the camera. This is the part of the leg of a Utahraptor. Utahraptor is the biggest species of raptor. It lived, guess where? Utah. This is actually closer to the size of the Jurassic Park raptors. Utahraptor is pretty special to BYU. We actually have the largest collection of Utahraptor bones in the world, and we have a full skeleton on display here at the Museum of Paleontology. Highly recommend coming to check it out once we reopen. Now we're going to take just a little side note here. Raptors are famous for their claws. This big killing claw on the inner toe. Now we think they may have used those for a number of things: slashing, defense, taking down big prey. But one of them that's been suggested in recent years is that a raptor would pounce on its prey and then use its claws to kind of pin it down and hold on to it, and keep it from moving, and then it would eat it alive. Maybe it could use it to tear apart things a little bit. So Utahraptor and these other raptors, they were really effective with these claws. And their foot bones are actually really similar to those of eagles and owls, and we think they had pretty strong grip. So if they pounced on you with those claws, you're not getting away probably. And there's actually some modern birds that actually have claws like these as well. There's a type of bird in South America called a Seriama. I don't have a picture of one. I couldn't find a good picture, but they also actually have those sickle-shaped kind of raptor claws. And we actually think that the earliest birds may have actually had those as well. So then the Seriama has kind of re-evolved that sort of raptor trait. See, what part of Utah were Utahraptor found? Moab area, Price, Moab, eastern part of Utah. So that's some examples of some raptors. They're pretty cool, and they were really close to the origin of birds. Of course, though, this presentation wouldn't be complete without mentioning the Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx, which I have right here, is the Archaeopteryx is one of the earliest known birds. I say birds in quotation marks because it's really hard to tell where it stops being just another dinosaur and where it starts being a bird. This is kind of considered the breakoff point, or close to it. This was discovered in 1874, I think, in Germany, in a lake or a lagoon deposit. You can see it's got kind of a mixture of dinosaur and bird traits. It's got sort of a lightly built skull, big eye like a bird. If you look close, you can still see that it's got some teeth in there. It's got wings like a bird, but it still has claws on those like a dinosaur, and it's still got kind of a tail. Tail hasn't shrunk yet in this species. So this is sort of considered the missing link between the non-avian, the non-bird dinosaurs and the birds. This lived in the late Jurassic. And then from animals like this, other species of prehistoric birds evolved and spread throughout the world. Beaks developed, probably in response to flight. If you're a bird and you're trying to fly, you want to be as light as possible. Bone and teeth are heavier than a beak material. So as birds are evolving flight, they're getting better at it. It becomes more advantageous for them to reduce the bones in the skull, to get rid of teeth, and they replace all that with a beak. which can still tear at things if you're a carnivore. Just think of like an eagle, that hooked beak for tearing at flesh. But it's also a lot lighter than the skulls of like a Velociraptor or even an Archaeopteryx. So that's why we think beaks evolved in birds. So here's a question. Is there any real evidence that raptors are more intelligent than other species of dinosaurs, as shown in the Jurassic Park movies? Yes and no. Yes, raptors and another group called troodontids do seem to have had the biggest brain size relative to body size among the non-avian dinosaurs. And there is some evidence that they did probably, at least some species, hunt in packs and engage in cooperative hunting. However, the level of intelligence that is shown in the movies is largely imaginative, especially in the more recent ones with Jurassic World and the sort of the friendly raptor. That's a lot less likely, I would say. There isn't a whole lot of evidence for anything like that per se. But yes, they do seem to have been pretty intelligent. Hopefully that answers the question well. I guess to finish up, so birds spread throughout the dinosaur world. They're kind of like the equivalent of bats are to mammals, birds are to dinosaurs. And there was a whole bunch of different kinds of them. There were even some aquatic ones, like Hesperornis, which look kind of like a penguin or a grebe, but they're like 6 feet long and with teeth. Probably wouldn't want to go swimming with one of those. We have a whole bunch of variety, and then 66 million years ago, disaster struck. A huge meteor the size of Mount Everest struck the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, and that ended the Cretaceous period, ended the Mesozoic era and the age of dinosaurs. And all of the non-bird dinosaurs like T-Rex and Triceratops, they all went extinct. All these pterosaurs, like the one you see behind me, they went extinct. A bunch of the other the marine reptiles and things that lived around the dinosaurs, they went extinct, as well as a lot of the birds. We talk about birds as the ones that survived the extinction, but even they were hit really hard. The majority of them actually did go extinct. And it was only just a few lineages that survived into the next era, the Cenozoic, which is what we're in right now, to kind of rebuild. But luckily, some of them did survive, and now we actually have around 10,000 species of modern birds with us today, which is pretty impressive. We think of this as the age of mammals, and while mammals do tend to be the dominant animals in any given land animal niche, birds actually have us outnumbered about 2 to 1 in terms of number of species. Let's see, how did the few bird species survive? That's a good question. So generally, to survive a mass extinction, you want to be a generalist, not very specialized, and probably pretty dang small. So if you're smaller than a couple pounds, you have a pretty good chance of surviving, because you don't need to eat as much, and you can eat kind of whatever you can find. You don't have like a specific dietary needs, like a T-Rex or a Velociraptor that is specifically eating meat. Some of the small birds that did survive, they probably did so because they are small and because they could kind of eat whatever was there, whatever was left, and they were able to get by with that until things started to get better, and then they were able to expand and and fill those new ecological niches that have been left open by the extinction of the other dinosaurs. And mammals also survived the same way, and did the same thing. They also, once the dinosaurs were out of the way, expanded to fill those ecological roles that were left empty. So nowadays we have over 10,000 species of dinosaurs, some flightless, most of them can fly though, and we're really grateful for that. And I would be, it'd be unfair to not mention the Bean Museum again, especially since they're the ones hosting this. The Bean Museum has a fantastic collection of birds. They have an ostrich, a whole bunch of flying birds, all in there. They have a whole room dedicated to these preserved bird taxidermy specimens. So, like if you want to get a taste of the modern dinosaurs, that's a great place to check that out as well. And that about finishes up for my presentation. It went a little bit long. Hopefully it was interesting though, and hopefully you enjoyed seeing some of those specimens. Thanks again to the Bean Museum for hosting this. Check them out, and then when you get a chance and we're open, hopefully this pandemic will be done soon, come and check out the BYU Museum of Paleontology. Thank you so much, and have a great day. If I can figure out how to turn this thing off, maybe we can end. Oh, here we go. Have a great day, guys.